Marketing Matters, I'm Peter Applebaum. In this episode, we're going to explore how to sell when you can't sell. You may be able to design beautiful homes, make a perfect macchiato, or put together a balance sheet that actually balances. But when it comes to selling, you get stressed and tongue-tied. No more. We're going to speak with people just like you who have built successful businesses and brands despite not being highly experienced salespeople. First, we're going to chat with former Special Forces Commander Mark Wales, who has now started tough luxury e-commerce brand Kill Capture. Plus, we're going to speak to Pariti Jain from wealth education company SkillSmart and public relations consultant Phoebe Netto from Pure Public Relations. Mark Wales has a unique background. 16 years in the military, Wharton Business School MBA, McKinsey consultant, Australian Survivor contestant, and now business owner. What Mark hasn't been, by title at least, is a marketer or a salesperson. To see if that has made a difference, we welcome Mark to Marketing Matters. So Mark, you've had such a varied career path. What has taught you the most about how to persuade people to buy?
Pete, probably the first thing I learned about selling was in the army you'd have to often present plans which would often be trying to convince people to do things that were often quite risky. So for me it was being able to be convincing, compelling and actually believing in what it is you're doing and your purpose. So that was probably the first thing.
And so obviously sincerity and just focus is critical.
Exactly, because if you don't trust who you're speaking to, you're certainly not going to buy from.
Right.
So establishing that authenticity early is a really important part of it. Instead of thinking about selling, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. Think first about establishing that kind of relationship with the person.
Okay, and has your lack of sales and marketing background held you back, or has it been an advantage?
No, I think it's been an advantage. It helps to get some form of training. But in my case, because it was a clean sheet, I could go to what my strengths were. So I started doing things like email marketing, reaching out and having conversations directly. And I'd just talk about what I wanted to do, what was concerning me about it, and what other people's opinions were. And slowly people found that they had some ownership over it as well. So it was good.
And what, if any, mistakes have you made when selling your products or your ideas?
Probably the biggest one is trying to present the brand as though it's a perfect front. There's no such thing. I like sharing some of my failures with my audience. It's probably some of the most amusing things that I do. So every time I'm talking to people in email marketing, I'll talk about what I've done well and what I haven't done well, and that often makes you a bit more approachable as a brand.
Which goes back to the sincerity that we were talking about. I mean, you've done a lot of digital marketing things. You've done real-world things as well from a selling point of view? Yeah,
exactly. So normally what I'll do is try and get a band of close followers. I won't try and do top-down marketing where I'm selling to a broad array of people. I'll actually just get a group of core followers that really believe in where you're headed, and then the product's kind of the byline. It's a much easier proposition if the people understand where you're going and they trust you as well. Okay,
well, speaking about the product, you're modelling it for us today.
Yep.
Your tough luxury, you've established that segment, haven't you? Or is it you're pretty much
I've started using that moniker. It doesn't really exist. I mean, R.M. Williams has talked about rugged elegance, but I look up tough luxury on the net, it doesn't really exist. And because people from our or the field I came from or the background I came from were not spoken to by the fashion world. They're often ignored. So speaking to them now, I'm finding out there's an unmet need in that segment, so it's been good.
I notice on your website all the people who are modelling the jacket are ex-military.
Yep.
Including the US Secretary of Defence, no less.
Yes, we did get Mad Dog Mattis in for a photo shoot before he was a very wanted man, so that was probably 9 months in the making, but he was nice enough to come out and he talked about veterans doing businesses and starting to rebuild the economy in their own way after having a career in the military. So it was great of him to do it, and it's kind of one way we bring people in that have aligned values to us, and people loved it.
So this jacket that you're showing us, it sells for Australian dollars $1,850. What gave you the idea and, more to the point, the confidence to offer such an expensive item?
Yeah, pretty nerve-wracking at the start, but I think over time I made sure it was absolutely top of the line, because in the job I was in, we always went out with the absolute best. So we'd make sure we had the best equipment, things were highly functional and minimal, and we tried to reflect the same thing with the product, and incrementally I've been able to increase the price.
Okay, well that's a great case study for people who are looking to offer a premium product, that's for sure. So, final question, what advice would you have for highly trained professionals like yourself who need to learn how to market and sell their products and services when they're not really comfortable with it?
Sure. I'd say just start with why you're doing it and have those conversations, explain your vision for where you want to go. People respond really well to storytelling. They'll get drawn into your vision if it's a compelling one, and you can go from there. And most of all, have fun with it. Like it's actually good to test different things. It's fun to fail sometimes, as long as it's not a super expensive fail, and you can really enjoy the process as you go along and just see what works. And
you've used marketing techniques that don't cost a lot of money. Social media, you're very active, for example.
It's a great thing now, the amount of tools there are that just are pretty much free. So being able to have a smartphone with a camera and an internet connection, you can do a lot of marketing with just that.
Okay, and that's something that has really propelled you forward. And as you say, you've got your community and you've really used them to spread the word, haven't you?
Yes, and we try and get those extra bits of trust that people can verify, so third-party media articles, all those things are kind of data points that people can look at if they're considering a purchase. It just helps.
Okay. I'd like to thank Mark for taking us through what has worked for him with Kill Capture, and after the break we speak to our experts on the marketing panel. Welcome back. To discuss their thoughts about how you can sell when you can't sell, we have Mark again from Kill Capture, along with Paridi Jain, founder of Skilled Smart, and Phoebe Netto, founder and CEO of Pure Public Relations. So, Paridi, how have your sales skills developed since starting your business? Because you came from a corporate environment, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So I'd never sold outside of a corporate environment. I always had a big brand backing me. And so when I started Skilled Smart, I recognized that I really needed to focus on the need and the problem that I was solving and the customer that I was serving. So the need being money skills and financial literacy, and my customer segment, I actually interviewed over hundreds of customers
before starting your business.
Yeah, right. And so that really helped me understand what's the pain point they're feeling and what language do they use to describe that pain point and what is the solution they want. So not only did that help me actually design the 6-week money management course, it helped me with my sales approach, because from there I knew how to talk to my customers. I knew what language they wanted me to talk to them in, and it became more of a conversation instead of a sales pitch.
Right. So you'd already eyeballed hundreds of your potential customers, so you'd got that confidence to know how you could actually approach them and persuade them once you had the product.
100%. And then I could see that it was a problem that I was solving for them, not something that I was trying to... It became less of a dirty sale and more of a, how can I help you with your problem?
Sales is not a dirty word, though, Paridi.
It's not.
Phoebe, how have you seen public relations can help small to medium businesses to get more clients? Because obviously that's your business as a consultant.
Yes, and public relations or PR can certainly get the phone ringing with sales and inquiries because it has that power of a third-party endorsement. So you're seeing a business or a product winning an award, or in the publication, the media outlet that you trust and respect, or promoted by an influencer that means something to you, or associated with someone of note like a government person. Right. So it has that endorsement where you go, okay, if I feel like I can trust them more and they fit my need because of that more.
So PR is certainly a very valuable strategy for smaller businesses.
Yes, they need to punch above their weight in some ways.
Right.
They don't have the budget of a big business, but they've already got more credibility and trust, some might say, than many big businesses, and so public relations amplifies that. It helps build their credibility. It promotes the reputation that should be a good one if they're a small business.
Of course, and it's your job to obviously bring that out and to really amplify that.
Yes, and we help remove the roadblocks.
Right.
So if we can say, if you're a tradie, and a roadblock for you might be that people don't trust you or don't see you as being neat and tidy and professional, eloquent, you can show those best parts of your brand, not just tell them in say, an advertisement.
Right.
So it's got that authenticity about it.
Okay. And Mark, have you found one or more marketing strategies that has helped you to sell more effectively based on what we were talking about before?
Sure, probably two. One, firstly, would be PR and earned media. I think that gets you a certain degree of trust that you otherwise would have trouble getting. So that extra bit of credibility can help a lot, and any articles I've gotten through third parties has been really helpful. But probably the most effective would be people that have tried your product, believe in it, and are willing to tell other people about it. That's probably the most powerful form of validation, and I think that's the most kind of successful means of marketing.
You mentioned free media using social media, for example. I'm a huge fan of PR because I think that, as I say, the media has this voracious appetite, as evidenced by this show. The media has a voracious appetite for people who have stories to tell. And if you're not out there selling necessarily, but telling stories that are relevant to the target market, as Paridi was saying, that's something that's going to get some resonance and it's going to get some people listening to it.
Exactly, and people respond to storytelling. They don't want to be lectured, they're not silly, they want to hear a vision or a tale and be a part of that.
As I say, to pay $1,850 for a jacket, there's got to be a story behind it.
It's a commodity. Like anyone can make a jacket, so what is it that is compelling about it? That's the kind of what PR can tease out as well.
Right. And Paridi, talking specifically about selling, everyone says, oh, I can't make a cold call. Does cold calling still work?
I think it's still about building that relationship. I think cold calling is great to start that relationship, but then it's about that conversation and building that rapport and building that relationship so you build that trust. And I think building trust is a really, really key part of learning how to sell, because people buy from people that they trust.
But obviously there are people going to say, oh, look, I'll make 100 phone calls, which is pretty brutal in itself.
Yeah.
And they'll say, I might only get through to 30 people, and of those, only 3 people are going to want to see me, and only 1 might want to buy. That's pretty difficult numbers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think part of it's about persistence, part of it's about the follow-up, part of it's about not getting disheartened if people say no. Sometimes I have to call back from in offices and look up their LinkedIn and find an email and how do I get the next number, and you know, there are 3 or 4 different ways before I can get to the right person to pick up my phone call, and then I still have to send up a follow-up email. So it's about having that persistence and not getting disheartened at the first or the second or the third or even the 4th no.
So you've got to be thick-skinned.
A little bit, yeah.
And speaking about thick-skinned, we're talking to the PR consultant here. So let's just say, Phoebe, I'm a great barista, an engineer, an accountant, but I don't feel comfortable selling. What are the steps I should take? What should I do to be successful?
Don't call it selling.
Good point.
That makes it a bit more approachable. Look at what you need to do. You need people to know that you exist. You need them to like you and what you do. And they need to trust you so that you stand out from your competitors. And they need something that's compelling that gets them to the point where they're willing to cross the line and make that sale. If you're ticking those boxes, some people might call it selling, but all it is getting customers.
Right.
And so the tactics that you use will differ for each business, but if you're ticking those boxes, you're doing a really good job.
So obviously from your point of view, PR is a central strategy that you should be using.
Yes.
And you found for different businesses, what are the different types of strategies that you found to be most effective to help people who are not necessarily comfortable with marketing themselves as such?
Well, they can get someone else to do it for them, is one strategy. And you were mentioning one of the reasons that the social proof worked so well for you is because it's somebody else giving their opinion and endorsement. Selling is seen as aggressive by some people, but social proof is a form of selling. It's somebody else selling your business for you, essentially. And
the art of persuasion.
Yes,
right.
And that's even better.
Exactly. So, Mark, what's the one key tip you would have for non-salespeople to be successful in business?
Start with why. Understand what you're selling, why you're selling it. That's the key part of starting a conversation. Build trust and be authentic, because that is the foundation for any relationship, not just in business, but with just humans in general. So start with that, move to the selling part as the final part of that entire equation.
Or persuasion.
Persuasion.
I mean, authenticity is a word we hear often
Exactly.
here on Marketing Matters, and it's like, I think that goes back to everything you were talking about, even with the people you used on your website.
Just be open and honest. And we use veterans for our photographs because they're not perfect. They're a bit, they've been beaten up and they look different, and that's kind of real. It's authentic. They're not scrubbed up.
And so the tough luxury segment, that sort of approach appeals.
Exactly.
Obviously. And Paridi, what are your one tip or 2 or 3 tips you would have for people who aren't necessarily comfortable with being salespeople as such?
I think it actually relates to what Mark said about your why. I think it's about falling in love with the impact that you're making, the need that you're serving. If you can connect with that, then you really believe in your product, and then you really believe that the end user is going to get value from it, and then that becomes a lot easier to communicate. When I can see the difference that our course makes to the financial lives of people who go through it, how much money they're able to save, how much more confidence they have, then it becomes very easy for me to communicate that with the next batch of students and say, I really do believe that this is going to add value to your life.
Wonderful. So, final word. Phoebe, very briefly, what advice would you give? One sentence.
Don't be afraid to show that you know what you're doing and that you're good at it.
Okay, so just embrace who and what you are and just tell the world about it.
And don't shout. Find ways to have other people doing the shouting for you, and people will believe it then.
I love that. Don't shout. That's wonderful. Coming from a PR person, that's an interesting strategy. Yeah, that's great. Coming up after the break, we hear from some viewers and the panel will discuss their questions. And welcome back to Marketing Matters. We have some viewer questions about this week's topic. And our first caller of the night is Debbie Weiss. Hi, Debbie. Thanks for calling in. What's your business and what's your question for the panel?
Hi, Peter. I am a wedding and event floral designer. My business is called Dragonfly Floral Design. And I was wondering if it's worth hiring a salesperson when relationships are very important in my business with my clients. So should I hire a salesperson?
Mark?
Debbie, yes, you should, but the caveat is that before you hire that salesperson, you should have a really clear understanding of who your customer is, what their issues are, and what you're trying to fix, and exactly what your product is. I think once you understand those things really clearly and you've built a lot of close personal relationships, at that point, once you have critical mass, then you can start to scale with a salesperson. That would be my advice.
I've actually investigated Debbie's business, and I know she's very active on social media because obviously that helps a great deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you can then directly reach out to people and they can reach out to you and can have those conversations early. And
Phoebe, obviously PR is almost like the silent salesperson, if you will. What are your thoughts about that?
I think in your industry, Debbie, relationships is really important. It's a big moment for people, so they need to like what she does and they need to have that relationship. But if she gets a salesperson, they need to fit with that brand so that that is no longer an issue. They've got good relationships as well then.
Wonderful. Debbie, does that answer your question?
Very good sense, and I will give it some thought, so thank you for the tips.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for calling in. And let's go straight to our next caller. We have Alvi Gonzalez on the line. Hi, Alvi. What's your business and what's your marketing question, please?
G'day, guys. How you doing? It's Alvi here from Empowered Health International. I'm a health coach, and my question today is, when it comes to online and face-to-face, where do you feel in the health and fitness business, where should you place more energy these days?
Paridi, what do you think about that?
So I think face-to-face is a really great way to start to understand your customer, what's the language they're speaking, what's their specific pain points, and then online's a really good way to actually scale that communication and reach more customers. But if you haven't got that first bit down of understanding exactly what your customer needs are, then online can maybe actually inhibit you understanding your customer. So first get that down and then use online to scale that communication. Well,
that's, as I say, you're a great person to answer that question, but given the fact that you did that research with hundreds of people before you started your business.
Yeah.
So how did you leverage those face-to-face relationships you established before you started your business?
What do you mean by leverage?
How did you basically take it? You established those relationships. Did you basically take them and take advantage of them in the digital context as well?
Well, it was great because, one, after those hundreds of conversations, we had a database that we could go back and say, we built a product that actually serves exactly the need and the pain point you talked about. And now we actually have a virtual offering which went completely online because we had interstate interest. And so we listened to that pool of the market as well. But it's really about listening to the customer, and face-to-face does allow that real immediacy to understand the pain point. And then online is just a tool that you use to serve that up.
Okay, and Mark, final point, what would you say to that?
Yeah, great thing about online is just the scale and reach you can achieve. However, if you haven't first adjusted your formula right at that point, you're scaling for the wrong reasons and you may not hit your segment with the right solution. So over-indexing on the face-to-face early is, I would recommend strongly.
Right. I'd like to thank Debbie and Alvi, and I'd also like to thank Mark, Paridi and Phoebe for their time and insights on this week's panel. And now to our marketing tech segment. This week, we're discussing why your business needs a mobile app. Here's your host, Susan Werkner.
You're not the only one who loves your smartphone. Your customers do too. Recent statistics show that on average, we Australians spend 3 to 4 hours every day on our smartphones. And not only that, Australians are the highest users of mobile apps in the world, using an average 36 different apps per month, 6 more than the global average. So what are the benefits of offering your customers an app? First, you'll be visible to customers 24/7. You can be sure you'll gain visibility with a new audience and even traction if you build the right app for the right audience and market it effectively. Secondly, you can access a direct marketing and sales channel. Your app can provide many important benefits to your customers, such as pricing, promotions, and alerts direct to their mobile phones. Next, you can grow your customer engagement. Sydney SC is a niche Chinese restaurant booking app that helps to drive diners to their soon-to-be favourite Chinese restaurant. Flossy enables customers to book and pay for beauty appointments in seconds. Then you can cultivate greater customer loyalty. A loyal customer is your best brand advocate. So what better way than have an inbuilt loyalty program offered as part of your app? And last but not least, building your brand is never more important than when you can have a visual representation on your customers' smartphones. Even just scrolling through the apps will ensure they will look at your brand multiple times a day, increasing recognition and awareness. It has never been easier or more cost-effective for you to build your own app. You can use one of the many fantastic mobile app builders like AppyPie, BuildFire or Apps Builder to build your own mobile app without having to worry about coding and any tech issues. So if you're looking to influence, persuade and engage your customers, it makes sense to offer your own dedicated app.
Thank you, Susan. And that's all for now. Next week, we discuss traditional versus digital. Please email us if you would like to be one of our call-ins. And remember to email your thoughts and questions to feedback@marketingmatterstv.com. Thanks for watching Marketing Matters, and we'll see you next week.